20R 60, establishing a city council advisory board to review ordinances, policies, procedures, and practices to identify, if any, those that employ or support racism and/or bias.
Motion to table.
Motion made by Councilman Kithis to table 20R 60.
I'll second that for discussion.
Seconded by Councilman Susi. There is no discussion on a tabling motion. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Okay.
Councilman Brean?
No.
Councilman Kenoyer?
No.
Councilman Kithis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra?
No.
Councilman Susi?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
No.
President Gendron?
No, and 20R 60 is before us. The tabling motion fails 5-2.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Councilman Ward.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Sierra.
Council President.
Council.
Kenoyer. Comments?
Council President.
Councilman Kithis.
Yes, we all received an email prior to the meeting from the Watch Coalition, which is a very prominent group that's doing work advocating for racial justice in Woonsocket. And they approve of the idea of this board, but they believe that there are issues with the implementation, and they wanted some time to be able to work with the council in order to make it the best possible version that it could be. I momentarily forgot that we couldn't discuss on the table motion, so I should probably, well, I would have wanted to give that justification for it. So I'm not sure if I can motion to table again now, having said that, or if somebody else would like to, but I think in good faith, if we want to work with the Watch Coalition, I think that would be the best situation.
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
Council President, I'm glad Councilman Kithis realized that his tabling prevented us from discussing the email that was sent to us 15 minutes before the meeting. I wish it had been sent to us earlier so that we could have had a better sense of what their concerns are. However, I appreciate them communicating with us, and I understand they may have concerns with the structure of this resolution. And so I don't necessarily disagree with tabling this for their participation, certainly. And I would, but I would defer to Councilman Kenoyer, who drafted this, and ask for his comment on and feelings about the matter related to the Watch Coalition's concerns.
Sure. Council President?
Councilman Kenoyer.
Yeah. So number one, I'll echo Councilman Ward's comments. It's interesting that we received some feedback from the Watch Coalition 16 minutes prior to the meeting. This has been out there for quite some time. Number one. Number two, I got to be very honest with you. I'm not entirely clear what their concerns are. I do take issue with their comment that, quote, "We cannot ignore the fact that members of the city council have openly denied, minimized, and ridiculed the existence of oppression." Not sure what that's all about. This is a good faith effort. We've heard from people, a number of us have. I've heard from people that have expressed concerns that we need to, quote, end racist policies. And I've spoken to a number of folks in the community that have expressed those concerns. And I've shared this resolution to a number of those folks. And I've gotten nothing but positive feedback. So just to be clear for the listening audience, this is simply establishing an advisory board that will be ultimately appointed by the city council. And that advisory board will elect their own chairman or chairperson, and they will spend the necessary time. It's given them almost 3 months to go through ordinances, policies, practices, procedures, to review, to determine if any of those, in any way, shape, or form, support or employ racism or bias. Again, going back to the Watch Coalition, their concern is that the makeup of the council is, quote, all but one is a man, only one is a member of the LGBT plus community. Given the council is largely composed of people, it's like an impossible, they've created an impossible definition that no matter what we do, it's not going to be right. So I think, the next council meeting isn't until July 15th. That's another month that goes by. We have heard, as I said, numerous times from folks about these issues. So my guess is a number of them already have a list handy. This hopefully won't be a ton of work for people, but I think it's cynical to respond to this email that we got 16 minutes before the meeting. And I would urge my colleagues to support this as originally anticipated. We had 6 members. And I think one council member who added and said, I can't imagine why this wouldn't have 7. So either we're going to do, we're listening to people, and rather than just having constant rhetoric, I prefer to actually take some action. And I believe that this is positive action to invite people from the community to put together a committee and to spend the necessary time working to review this stuff and come back to the council. It's very transparent. Okay, it's going to have to come back to the council ultimately with a written report. And I don't know that we need to make this more complicated than it is. It's pretty straightforward. And it calls for, it asks people of the community to, number one, submit their name if they're interested through the clerk. And then ultimately the city council will make the appointments with 2 folks coming from the mayor's office. The mayor's office will have at least 2 of the people that will be appointed. And it has a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 11. If somebody feels that it should be a larger group, I'm more than happy to entertain an amendment to increase the size. If someone thinks that 11 is not enough, I always get concerned about having too wieldy a group of boards or committees, because you end up sometimes getting paralysis. But I will defer to the group. If somebody wants to increase it, if they don't think we have enough, that's fine. But other than that, I don't know why we would slow this down, and I don't know why we would hold this up and not move forward with the 6 names that were on here originally. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank
Council
you.
President.
I just want to say, I think that it's important. First of all, I was logged into this Zoom call. I get on earlier to coordinate things with Michael O'Connell. I didn't even know about the email to which you people are talking about, so I haven't actually seen it yet. But from what Councilman Kenoyer said, the fact that there is a comment about the makeup of the city council, I think is exactly the reason why we're proposing a separate board that can be, if diversity is what they're looking for, we can create that diversity, to bring out what actions need to be taken. And I think one of the best lines that Councilman Kenoyer said is we need to stop talking and start acting. And I think, there was 6 councilors that looked at this and realized that we don't have the luxury of time anymore. There's things that are happening, and we don't want to be the ones that just keep looking and wondering what we should do. If there's problems to be fixed, let's get them fixed. And you've got a council here that a majority of the council wants things to be fixed, and not just to point out problems, but to actually fix things and make things right if there are things that are wrong. And I, for one, I don't know what I don't know. And if there are things that need to be fixed, please tell me, and I will be the first one that will advocate for making those repairs to what is deficient, because I certainly don't want to live in or support or sit on a city council of a city that has things that are at all remotely perceived as racist. And I don't know how to identify those alone. And I think with this group, it's a great way to move forward. So Thank you for everyone who's supporting it, and thank you, Councilman Kenoyer, for drafting it.
Council President.
Council President.
And Susie, I saw you first.
Okay. Yeah, just, I concur. I think this is it's a great step forward. My concern was that we really do it right. And I think the makeup of this group is going to be essential. And I think we really have to take that very, very seriously and make sure that it reflects who we are as a community. It's vital. I was also late in reading that statement that we just received. It does state a lot of good things. And so I'm for this. I just want to make sure that I'm not sure how we do that, ensure that the public out there that this committee will be made up of something that reflects us as a community. I would like to make an amendment if I could, or offer an amendment.
Sure.
Yeah. I just want to keep it as positive as possible and to just get rid of any airs of any not controversy, but I'd like to get rid of the second whereas, the one that says there have been suggestions by certain parties within the city. I just don't think it's necessary for this particular piece of legislation. That's my feeling, that we'll just get rid of it and keep it a nice, positive.
Okay. Motion made by Councilman Susie to eliminate the second whereas.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Kithis. On the amendment, comments.
Council President.
Councilman.
I'm not, with all due respect, I'm not sure. I guess I don't know what the issue is in terms of, quote, keeping it positive. This is just a statement of fact. We have all received, and I'm reading right here from one that all of us received. We're joining with people, yada, yada, to end the racist policies. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good discussion to have. No one needs to hide from any of this stuff. And this is just a statement of fact that what we're doing is, as the council president said, I don't have everybody's, I'll speak for myself. I don't have everybody's, quote, shared experience. I don't share the same experience as everybody else. Okay. So I may look at something and think it's fine, or I may look at something and think it's completely wrong. Someone else is going to have a different opinion. So this is just acknowledging that we have had a number of suggestions from various parties that there are that the city employs racist policies. And frankly, I'll be happy to share with each of you numerous emails where I have sent to these people, please provide me a list so that we can start to fix this stuff. And it's been difficult to get the list, any list. So this is just a statement of fact. We have had people that have told us, literally, in writing, that we have racist policies that need to end. They haven't provided that list. That's all this is saying. And so as a result of that, we're going to take the next step, create an advisory board to help facilitate this. It's not, I don't know how that is at all negative. It's defining and explaining why we're creating this board in part. So with respect, I will not be supporting that amendment.
Just respond to that. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. So I think the first whereas states it perfectly. The rest, you may not feel it, but there is a tone to it that some people would find, I think, that it's accusing others of doing things. And whether it's real or not, Jim, it doesn't matter. Why have it? If we don't need it, we're going to get the advisory committee together. That's a beautiful thing. And I think that's the important part. So that's
fine. Then I'll it's certainly not accusatory, but if that's how you're interpreting it, I'll yield to you and I'll support your amendment. If that's,
I appreciate that. Good.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments on the amendment? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk, on the amendment.
Councilman Brand,
Yes.
Councilman Kenoyer,
yes.
Councilman Kithis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
Yes.
Councilman Susie,
Yes.
Councilman Ward,
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 20R60 is amended 7-0.
Council
On the
President.
motion as amended,
Council President, I'd like to make a motion, amendment.
Councilman Breen was just ahead of you. Go ahead, Councilman Breen.
Thank you, Council President. So, going back to the original discussion that we were having in regard to receiving the email 15 minutes before, and I'm on the fact that I'm not going to get into a situation where we're going to start yielding when we get amendments in opposition, certain pieces of legislation minutes before a meeting, and that's going to put us in a position to say, well, You tabled something when you got a communication 15 minutes in advance of that meeting. So now why aren't you tabling this or voting one way or another when you get a communication right before the meeting? The agenda is put out on Thursday afternoon, and it's a publicly posted agenda. And I think that the practice of saying, well, we got an email right before the meeting, so we have to react to it. I think that that's a timing issue on the sender's part, but also I'm not going to get in, and I don't recommend this body get into a practice where we start being reactive to communications we receive moments before. Because, I mean, we could say, well, someone has an objection to the budget, and therefore we want you to, to vote the budget down or table the budget because we haven't had an ability to go through it properly yet. So I'm not going to get into that discussion. There is plenty of time to review these things, and we could have been contacted in advance of that period. And I think it sets a bad precedent, and it's not so much about these people or this issue. It's about the principle of the matter that says, just because we're getting communications literally before a publicly held meeting, I don't think that that's reason enough to be tabling or reacting to legislation. It can be taken under consideration when discussing the legislation, but I'm certainly not going to use that, as a reason to be reactive to legislation. I just don't think that makes good policy, and I don't think that's good government. With that, I am going to offer an amendment, Council President, because I was contacted by a few different people in our community on Friday, which is the day after it was posted, which was several days ago. And that was certainly a timely consideration that they asked me to please, if we would be so kind as to make a very simple amendment, and that would be to the third whereas in the very final sentence where it says sexual preference or sexual gender identity. I would merely make the amendment to say sexual orientation, comma, gender expression or identity. Simple amendment.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Brean, seconded by Councilman Kiffin. Comments on the amendment? Hearing none, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brean?
Yes.
Councilman Kenoyer?
Yes.
Councilman Kiffis?
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra?
Yes.
Councilman Susie?
Yes.
Councilman Ward?
Yes.
President Jenkins?
Yes, and 20R60 is amended 7-0. On the main motion as amended, comments?
Council President.
Councilman Kiffis.
I was just sent a series of proposed amendments by the Watch Coalition, so I'm going to make these at this time. So one amendment would strike in section 1, strike of not less than 5 and not more than 11 members, and replace it with 10 members. So just explicitly state 10 members.
So that's the first motion?
And in the same motion, add to the after members in that same section, comma, including 2 individuals who are Black, 2 individuals who are Asian, 2 individuals who are Hispanic, and 2 individuals who are Indigenous/Native American. So that's comma, as a separate element of makeup, at least 2 members must be members of the LGBTQ+ community, and at least 2 must be women. Period. This board shall, and then continue with review ordinances.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Kiffis.
I'll second for this one I can do for discussion, right? Second for discussion.
Seconded by Councilman Susie. Comments?
Council President.
Councilman Ward.
Councilman Kithis, just as a clarification, your amendment would reduce the number of participants in the committee to 10, and then would specifically identify all 10 slots that are to be filled with certain characteristics?
So it would specifically identify 8 of the slots, and then in terms of race, and then specifically identify, separate from that, identify 2 of the 10 slots in terms of gender and sexual expression and identity, and separate from that, identify 2 as women.
So what I'm saying, your amendment limits it to 10 and then identifies all 10 slots according to the definitions that you're including in there.
It identifies the 10 slots collectively as being defined by this makeup, yes.
If I may ask then, what would prevent those 10 people from voluntarily organizing themselves and doing the very same thing and bringing a recommendation to the council? Why would we need a council appointment if you've already effectively identified, without names, the membership of the committee?
Is that not also true of this board in general?
It is, except that frankly, I think you're misinterpreting what this resolution does. As a matter of fact, any resolution does as a form of, or in this case, appointment of a board, an advisory board, because basically any group of citizens of 10 or 11 or 5 could get together and review all of the ordinances, policies, procedures, and practices of the city of Woonsocket, except that, and then they could bring recommendations to the council so that anybody has that opportunity. The only thing really that this does is it identifies a problem which apparently is out there and is very well known in the community, but it does the important part. And the important part is actually section 4. It's really the only value to this is that it tells the administration and the various departments and agencies of the city that they shall cooperate fully and make themselves available to the board, as well as provide the board with information that they deem necessary to accomplish their mission. The rest of it is all structure in terms of getting it together, but it really is no different than any group of citizens getting together and wanting to do this. And so the real point of this is a citizens board of 10 people, as you structure it, would have to make requests, possibly some public record requests, freedom of information requests, where in this case, this would be instructive to our differences. Our authority would grant to this group the ability to obtain or expect to have the assistance and cooperation of the administration. So I guess your amendment would simply take out of the hands of the council who's appointed to this board, advisory board, and assure that it represents all of those representative groups with which I guess would presume that the council as a body, as the Watch Coalition put it, a body composed of predominantly white members and males, that apparently we don't have the sensibility or intellect to recognize the need of appointing members of this body that would actually be representative of the populations who would be expressing grievance and want solutions and want to work to point these things out. And so because you don't trust us to actually have the intellect to do that, you need to impose this amendment on the resolution to assure that we would do what is in the practical best interest of the city. So basically, the old white guys can't be trusted.
It's pretty well understood Councilman Ward, that when we're talking about analyzing policies and understanding where systemic racism exists, that it is imperative that we actually listen to the people whose personal experiences are at the receiving end of systemic racism, systemic sexism, etc. So, to your first point, I'm not. Your first point was not correct in that I am, like you're saying that any group of citizens can do this, and yes, that would also be true of a group of 5 to 11 white citizens. But the point is that if we're going to implement this board, that it should be racially representative of the city, because there are problems that are uniquely understood by the people who suffer under them. And if this is an honest attempt to try to address these things, and I'd like to believe that it is, from Councilman Kenoyer and the other 5 council members who signed on, then we have to, then we should probably follow best practices in terms of making sure that the people affected by the problems we're attempting to correct actually have a place at, in this case, the literal or figurative, if it's over Zoom, table.
And so you don't trust us to do that properly, is what you're saying.
I explained just now that it's more a matter of ensuring that the difference in experience between, for example, a white person and a Latino person, there's a difference in experience in terms of how systemic racism affects those 2 individuals, and it's important to ensure that the lived experiences of the latter, the Latino person, is present as a point of example.
I see. And so our privilege makes it impossible for us to actually see through that. I understand your concern or your point of view.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilman Ward. Comment, Councilman Brian.
Council President, number one, obviously, I understand that in this digital age and in this age of COVID, when we're trying to conduct these meetings, that things are different, that amendments are being emailed during the course of a meeting. But this is not the way government is conducted in a normal way. And frankly, I'm not going to sit here and be held hostage by the whims of those who want a change that, in my opinion, becomes discriminatory in nature from the very outset. We're saying it's got to be 2 of this race and 2 of this ethnicity and 2 of this and 2. When this is supposed to be a board which is meant to try to cross the racial divide, we automatically set it up along racial lines. And that's an issue for me. I would also say that if you can name at any time, at any place in the city of Woonsocket in which we have predetermined who may serve on a board merely by race, ethnicity, age, gender, we've never done it. And I can tell you, I am not going to support something to do that now. And Councilman Kittis, I will say very plainly to you, we are all elected officials on the Woonsocket City Council. We were voted by the people of the city who decided to go to the polls and vote for us. And we weren't voted by this group or that group. We were voted to represent all the people, and we were voted for by the people of this city. So I would say that this amendment is just folly, and I actually find it to be insulting. And further, I will tell you that I realize that no matter what the purposes of this board, and no matter what the intention is behind this board, there are going to be those who are going to tear it apart and try to blow holes in it and go after the people that are trying to do good. I assure you, and I know that no matter what happens, it will never be good enough unless those who say, and the loudest, that it's not good enough. And I'm not going to be held hostage in this way. This is a board made up of the city council and appointed by the city council and administration. And you know what? There are good people in this community who do understand race relations and have done good work in this city and have helped people of all ages and all races and all creeds, all ethnicities, and have been there for the people of this city, and to say they cannot understand the struggle of other people because they're not that color of the skin is insulting to them. And at this point, you know what? I'm in the mood to move the question because at this point I am so aggravated, but I will say, if any of my colleagues have anything else to say, but this is folly to set this up in this way, to even make this recommendation. It's insulting to the people that voted for this city council. It's insulting to the people that voted for you, Councilman Kithis. To think that there's nobody that this city council could find that could adequately represent the people of this city. There is nobody that the administration could find that can represent along racial lines. That unless and until we continue to divide and get into identity politics, where unless you are this, you cannot say that. Unless you are that, you cannot understand this. You want to bridge the gap, but it's stuff like this that only further divides it. And I will vehemently oppose this amendment. Thank you, Council President.
Council President.
Council President.
Councilwoman,
Council President for the first time.
Councilwoman Sierra.
Thank you. Actually, I want to thank Councilman Brand because you took a lot of the words right out of my mouth. I, for one, won't entertain any last-minute amendments like this. This resolution was on the agenda as of Thursday. Anyone from the watch group could have emailed any one of us over the last 4 days to propose these amendments. To do it at the last minute truly is insulting. And I'm going to speak as the only minority member of this city council. I think I am when I look at all of you. And I will tell you that I trust my white male peers to be able to put on a group of 10 or 11 people on this board. I work with them day in and day out. I am the minority on the council, and I do trust their ability to see through race, to see through gender, to see through sexual preference or orientation. I'm very insulted by this as well. I will not support any amendments this late in the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President.
Councilman Kithis.
When you are appointing people to the zoning board, I actually don't know off the top of my head if there is a specifically written into law intention to support somebody who has read the zoning laws, but you would certainly make a point to appoint people who understand the thing that that board is trying to regulate. And so, much in the same way, that's why I've made this amendment.
Council President?
Well, I will just say, Councilman Ward, if you'll indulge me for one moment, please.
By all means.
Councilman Kithis, the reason you made this amendment is because it was texted to you during the meeting. That's the reason you made the amendment.
It was actually texted to me 5 minutes after the meeting started.
Right. And you did not, you didn't make the amendment because you thought it was a good idea. You made the amendment because it was texted to you. Councilman Ward.
Council President, I guess in light of what's been discussed in my statements before, I think so that people can understand the discomfort that has been expressed here, I should read from this email that we received 15 minutes before the meeting, from the last paragraph to it. It reads, while we do not believe that it is impossible for people outside of an identity group to recognize injustices faced by that group, we cannot ignore the fact that members of the City Council have openly denied, minimized, and ridiculed the existence of oppression. How can the people of Woonsocket trust that this board will be assembled in good faith and will consist of people who will make a genuine effort to explore possible injustices in Woonsocket? Without amendments to this resolution and legitimate efforts to assemble a diverse board of people with experience and expertise in social marginalization, we cannot in good faith support this resolution as it's currently written. For this reason, the Watch Coalition asks the City Council table. So in essence, what the Watch Group is telling us is, as I expressed earlier, they don't trust us. And I guess maybe based upon what would be innocent reasons for us because we don't knowingly don't understand. But I guess it's also saying that we don't even have the intellect to figure out that the people we should put on this board are the people who actually would represent a diverse board of people with experience and expertise in social marginalization. And frankly, if they think, and if the Councilman Kithis thinks that this amendment is necessary in order to assure something that we're incompetent to do, then I would suggest to the sponsor that maybe the best thing to do is simply withdraw this resolution and let the chips fall where they may. But in honesty, the general nature of the resolution in terms of appointing a board based upon, oh, by the way, people appointed to zoning boards express an interest in participating as a member of a board. It's not because we seek out people with professional expertise. And this board would be those people who express an interest in being on the board, and it would clearly be in this council's interest to appoint those members who actually represent the communities that would want to have solutions found to what is a problem for us in how we operate the city. And so I guess I don't understand, but I'm going to believe that I have an open enough mind that if there is a group of people and two of them in various categories represent different sectors in the community, that we would have the wisdom to properly appoint those who not only have the experience and have the expertise in social marginalization, but that we would actually appoint those people so that they could do the job properly. It's certainly not in our interest to appoint a board that would do nothing and accomplish nothing. So I'm not going to support this amendment because I think it rests on a preconceived notion that this council is incompetent to deal with these issues. And we're not elected to be incompetent to deal with these issues or any other issue. And we do take input from the public. And after this resolution is approved, there's a whole bunch of people that can come put their names in with the clerk and place them before this council for consideration to be appointed and get the ball rolling. And so there's nothing to prevent the Watch Coalition or any other group from willingly participating through application to serve on this board. And we don't need to, how should we put it? We don't need to set quotas to assure diversity. I would expect we would have plenty of people in the community, especially based on the turnout at the recent events in the city. There'll be plenty of people interested in participating in this committee, and we would certainly be wise to ask for guidance and assistance from groups such as the Watch Coalition in selecting the candidates interested that are being the best interest of offering constructive and effective participation in such an advisory board. So I won't support this amendment because it's unnecessary and actually is detrimental to the best interest of the group that's requesting it.
Council President.
Council President.
Councilman Kenoyer.
Yeah, for the second time. Why are you shaking your head?
I actually said I said Council President first, but
you've had the floor 3 or 4 times. So look, a couple things. Number one, Councilman Kithis's quote best practices creates a board of 10 people. With all due respect, best practices, you always want an odd number of members of a board because they'll ultimately be voting on recommendations to make to the city council. So not 10. I could never support that. If you want best practice. Second thing is, I won't echo everything that Councilman Brian said and Councilman Ward and Councilwoman Sierra. I think they're all spot on. But look, we could have easily have gone down a path whereby we would have recommended and created a city council subcommittee to do this. Okay? But we didn't. What we're doing is we're asking for people in the community to step up, step forward, volunteer their time, and do this. So I am not going to start setting, as Councilman Ward said, quotas or preconditions and so forth. Let's see who steps up. Let's see who steps up and wants to participate. And I don't want to handcuff us. We may get some fabulous people that don't meet Councilman Kithis's specific identities. And then what do we do? So again, what we're asking for, and the resolution is crystal clear. We're asking people in our community to submit their names and their level of interest into the city clerk's office by July 7th so that we can make a decision in a very transparent way on July 15th so these people can start their work. Again, if the people that they can't trust on the city council wanted to control this, they would have made it a city council subcommittee. They're not. The city council is putting it in the hands of a group of people from the community that will express interest. And I am not going, again, I'm repeating myself, I'm not going to handcuff myself prior to finding out who's available. So obviously I won't be supporting Mr. Kittis's amendments. And I guess I was going to move the question, but it looks like he wants to say something. So I'll certainly.
For the first time, I just.
Councilman Susi.
Yeah, I just want to say I do believe that I think as a group we could make this work. I mean, I have to believe that. I mean, we are the elected officials. It's imperative that the public at large respond, in that we do get a great pool of potential people to serve on this thing. That's imperative. I mean, whether we set the quotas or not, if nobody puts their name in, I mean, where are we? I'm confident that we can. And hopefully this discussion will create the interest to get people involved, and then we'll have that ability to sit a good board that is representative of our community. And I'm not supportive of naming them now, or at least the exact makeup of that board, because you're right. Who knows who's going to put their name out there? So I'm confident we'll do a good job doing that. I just want to say that.
Amen.
Council President.
Susi, Councilman Kithis.
So I just want to make it very clear that the hypocrisy of having 2 weeks ago praised, or the hypocrisy of praising budgetary amendments that were submitted 5 minutes after the council meeting started, and criticizing amendments from the public, from the people that this committee would claim to be helping, criticizing them for having arrived 15 minutes prior to the meeting, and they only had a few days after the agenda was publicized to try to prepare a very, very complicated, try to prepare to make a very bad resolution through a very complicated set of adjustments better. And so that's hugely hypocritical to all council members who did say that, because they're members of the public. They're not paid like all of us, a stipend to be up here and be making laws, but they are the people who are directly affected by not only latent systemic racism, classism, homophobia, etc. in our laws, but also are the ones on the front lines of trying to advocate for people to listen, and to listen to the voices of those who experience these problems in order to make changes. And so I apologize if my bringing it up triggered anybody. I'm very sorry about that. And I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize for the fact that I brought it up triggered a bunch of my fellow council people to the point where they're not going to support a pretty obviously good amendment. Is very unfortunate to me. That's all I have to say.
So,
Council President.
No. I want to respond here. Councilman Kithis, let me just point out a few glaring facts. One, if a councilman makes an amendment at a city council meeting that they believe in and that they've researched and that they've worked through, that is far different than somebody like what just happened with you, where somebody texts you or emails you a proposed amendment that you couldn't even verbalize. You were stumbling, trying to get through reading what they were trying to set up. You couldn't even identify and verbalize what those smart people were trying to tell you to put forth. And you were bumbling and falling over yourself. That is far different than somebody who brings a very well-prepared and well-intentioned amendment to the meeting. You yourself have made, you as a councilman have made some amendment suggestions this evening. I believe one of them was actually sustained because it was a good amendment. Please don't insult me.
Okay, lengthy amendments, a 3-page amendment. That's different, Council President. Obviously, that's different.
I'm speaking. I have the floor. Learn the rules. You obviously are not capable of conducting under Robert's rules or the City Council rules of order. You obviously demonstrate your inability to work under the confinement that is proposed to you as a city councilman. Your outbursts are totally unnecessary and out of character. Please compose yourself with a little dignity. These outbursts are not they don't look good for you. And when you're smirking like that, Councilman Kithis, please don't lecture me on what is a good amendment. It is a terrible amendment because you yourself could not verbalize it in a way that we could understand it. It is the job of a councilman, when you have an amendment that you believe in, you have to sell it to your colleagues. It is like a car salesman trying to sell a car. You have to first believe what you're selling is a good product. You couldn't even get through the details of it, let alone sell it as a good thing. So don't say that we're not approving it because you put it forth. If Councilman Brian or Councilman Ward or Councilwoman Sierra had put it forth, I wouldn't support something like this because it has no value. In fact, it aids in deteriorating this resolution. And you've heard from others that we could have easily tried to handle this on our own, but I know my limitations with identifying these issues. And I think it's important that we reach out and form this group. But don't handcuff me to the point where if we have 3 people that don't fit into the Alex Kithis criteria, we have to automatically eliminate one of those people because they don't fit into your 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 theory. Please spare me and go home, or you are home, but read up and learn about proper protocol at a city council meeting. Are there any other comments?
Council President?
Amendment, Councilman Kenoyer.
So, not to belabor this, but again, Mr. Kithis, with all due respect, you may think your amendment is the greatest thing since sliced bread. That is your opinion, okay? But obviously, it's not shared by the majority of the council. So, for you to rant and rave and say it's a good amendment is interesting but irrelevant. That's number one. Number two, I'm really getting tired of you suggesting that if we have racist policies in the city, none of us are affected, okay? That I am somehow not affected or hurt or have a problem with that. I'm here to tell you I do have a problem with that. If we have racist policies or policies that are based on bias and racism, I do have a problem with that. And it does affect me and my life and my community. So please, get off your sanctimonious soapbox. The third thing is, just so you know, and I won't share with the individuals who they were, but I sent this resolution to several people in the community that spent a great deal of time working with people that you like to refer to as people that have been marginalized. And here's what they said. Thank you very much for sharing your resolution. It is really well crafted and a concrete step forward in more closely examining potential racist policies within the city government. And these are people I guarantee you that you will want on this advisory board. So get over yourself. Stop acting like you were there and you're the only person that can relate and understand any problems in the community. And everyone else, as Councilman Ward suggested, we just don't have the intellect. We don't have the honesty. We don't have the decency. Spare us, please. Council President, I move the question.
Council President,
We have a motion to move the question. Councilman Kithis.
I just would like to reply to Councilman Kenoyer through the President that I'm in fact not saying that I know better. I'm saying that we need to listen to the people who actually do understand the issues, because I don't know another way to describe this to my fellow council members when they haven't they clearly have not gleaned the lessons of the groundwater training that most of us went to, or any of the things that have been communicated to them by people in the community. So I will second moving the question.
Motion made by Councilman Kenoyer, seconded by Councilman Kithis to move the question on the amendment. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Brand,
Councilman Breen, you got to unmute.
No.
Councilman Kenoyer,
No.
Councilman Kithis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
No.
Councilman Susie,
No.
Councilman Ward,
No.
President Gendron.
No, and the amendment fails on a 6-1 vote. Are there any other comments on the main motion as amended? I will just make one comment. I wanted to say this earlier and I forgot to mention it in the heat of battle, but I've spoken to several people about this amendment, and one of the ironic comments that I heard was, this is one of the greatest things they've seen this city council put forth to help solve a potential problem that is yet to be identified in the city, and how could anyone not support this resolution? And I said, I didn't think there was a way that it would not go get a vote of 7-0. With that being said, let's see. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Brand,
Yes.
Councilman Kenoyer,
Yes.
Councilman Kithis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sierra,
Yes.
Councilman Susie,
Yes.
Councilman Ward,
Yes.
President Gendron.
Yes, and 20R60 is approved as amended 7-0.